hopefully last budget workshop for this season, but we are going to have a recap from John, and then followed by that, we're going to have a couple of discussions based on some changes, possible changes to the budget line items, and then also another discussion about some new numbers from the renovation project. So John, if you don't mind beginning with that.
Sure. So I'm just going to, like I said, I was going to briefly sort of go over and summarize a little bit in graphic form a lot of what we've already seen before, but it puts it in some context, and then we can get down to the discussion about the different budget proposals. This relies on the most recent budget proposal that we had. There was a 3.2% rise in the overall expenditure. So this is just going over our student population. I've heard people still continue to say that our student population is dropping, and that's really not true. The one-year change is minus 0.4, the four-year change is minus 0.7. So all less than 1% over the entire four-year period is what we're projecting. This is what I call flat, 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 if you ask me. This is the total employees. Also, virtually flat, flat, flat. One-year change minus 1.1%, four-year change up 1.1%. Flat, flat, flat. This is the total expenditures in our budget, last 4 years. And the budget increases. The total change this year we're proposing is 3.2%. The four-year change is about 9.1%. So that's an average change that's around 3. As we've said before, what drives those costs for us is 80% of our budget is in collective bargaining agreements. We only have about 17% of our costs in non-employee related costs. We've been going down, and we've been really trimming those costs, in some cases, I think, to our detriment, as we may talk about later on. So, and just to give you a comparison, this in the recent town budget, our personnel costs are going up about 4.2%. The town is proposing theirs will go up 4.7%. They may have updated that since, I don't know. However, this is what's happened to our state funding in the same four-year period. So those, I have not updated those changes. Those changes are at the top of those graphs or not. These are accurate over here. A one-year change of minus down 40.8%, and four-year down 62%. So that's cuts of, I think, 700,000, 500,000, and almost 900,000 this year over the last 4 years. All the while, as we said, our student population is flat, our total employment is flat, our non-personnel spending has been virtually flat. So what that means is, we would have been fine with the first cut, but we would have actually okay with the second cut. This year, we can't really bear that, and there's a significant increase that we're going to need to ask, even if we're making cuts. So, like I said, this is a flat budget. Some of these numbers that have been updated. Everything is virtually flat. There's still some significant costs that we're going to talk about as well tonight that are not in this budget. Some things we think that have real educational benefit we're not able to put in this budget. And that's in the face of a third consecutive cut in state funding, and this year's cut is over 40%, or about $900,000. So that's sort of a summary, recap of where we are with our current budget proposal. That's it.
Thank you, John. Okay, so I believe we should probably, last time we met, we asked for a parallel budget that would represent, I forget exactly, was it 9% increase to taxes? So that's what we're here to discuss right now.
Okay.
And I'll let you go through the list, please.
Thank you. So, right, so that's exactly the way I remember it. And what I said the other night, and it's reflected in this proposal, is I really felt strongly, I still do, that we need to add a custodian. Again, if we were to add one custodian, according to our director of facilities and transportation, we're still down one custodian and one maintenance person, which is nothing to dismiss. I mean, we understand that when you have not got adequate personnel to maintain your facilities, the pressure is great on those that are with you. I mean, they never can feel that they can get the job done. Okay, so what has happened is that I, over last weekend, put out to the administration 4 very different paths to get to this reduction. And since then, I've received 3 alternative, equally valuable and interesting ideas as to how to get there from various administrators, which was really appreciated. And this last Tuesday, I had an opportunity to sit down with a number of the administrators and hear more of what they're thinking, what makes sense. And based on all of that feedback, this is the list that I'm recommending. And if you don't mind, I'll just, it isn't all as clear as it might look. So do you mind if I just walk through some of this?
Yes.
So from top to bottom, we have a half-time science teacher retiring this year at the high school. We have a 3/4 teacher, we have a teacher teaching 3/4 time at the high school. Mr. Shedd feels that for a number of reasons, primarily what the students need, that job should be advanced, and I agree with that, to full-time. So that's a net reduction of 1/4 FTE, full-time equivalent. That's what that means. It also, I really, whenever possible, I think we ought to do what we can to have jobs be full-time, by the way. This is a little baby step in that direction. So the next one on this list is self-explanatory. I really hope you don't press me tonight on giving you which textbooks and which supplies. I don't know, is the answer. But in talking with the 3 principals, they feel that between the 3 of them, their budgets, they can make these, they can reduce their total lines by this amount of money. Again, one of the objectives, going back to last week, was we're trying to do the best we can to preserve programs. The next one is, we have a teacher at Pond Cove who is retiring, and I'm sorry, I get these names really confused, but I'm gonna just call it a teacher that works on teaching children to read. I know it's more complicated than that, but I'm gonna call it that. And Mr. Mangiaridis feels that it's really important to preserve that position for the benefit of the children. And so what is in my mind is, you will remember that last year, or most of you will remember, that last year you were asked by Jessica Clark to establish 2 positions. Again, I don't remember the names, but they're 2 teachers that are in special ed, one to work, well, between the 2 of them, to work all 3 schools and supporting, I think I'll say, to support teachers with all the work demand on them in special ed, without getting into a lot of detail. But that's what those 2 jobs have been, and they've been appreciated, and they've worked well. But my opinion is that those 2 jobs, we have other needs this year. We have budgetary needs and we have student needs. And so for next year, my recommendation is that we return those 2 teachers largely to working directly with students. We have the need. And if we have a teacher at Pond Cove who fills this job from the retirement, then one of these teachers could take that teacher's job, assuming he or she's in special ed. And so we hold on to the reading job, we hold on to the special education job, and we lose the job of supporting teachers, and with all the demand that is on them in special ed. You follow me? Same thing's true with the other job. At the middle school, the teacher who's doing this very same job in middle school next year would be still having a job, no loss, but we get working more directly with students, which is what the jobs used to be. So there is we preserved the job for teaching children to read, and we're moving a special education teacher back into the classroom. Okay? The next one is straightforward. I mean, you know what that is. To delay, again, the playground, I believe there are some people in the community who may want to approach you and ask if you would be supportive of there being a fund drive in the community to raise the money to pay for this part of the playground. And that's I think 80-some thousand dollars of this 115. The balance would just be other things on that list that they may or not be exactly the order they were prioritized. I would want to sit down with Mr. Schwartz and look at that a bit myself. But anyway, that's where 115 comes from. AccuPlacer apparently is a software program that students use. I'm sorry, Mr. Shedd, do you mind?
Yeah, it's used, colleges use it for placement of students, particularly community colleges, but a lot of colleges use AccuPlacer. And we use it for our courses that we offer that are dual enrollment classes, so that kids can qualify into those dual enrollment classes using AccuPlacer. And there are other uses for it as well. It's a good benchmarking tool for how kids are doing and progressing. This year, we were able to buy enough additional units of AccuPlacer to get us through next year. So we can still offer AccuPlacer, but we could take away that money.
So there is a savings there of $5,000. Currently, we have a full-time English language learner teacher. We are apparently, at this point, we have 8 students enrolled in the program. And the feeling of the administration is that a half-time position can meet the needs of these 8 children. So that is based purely on enrollments. The next one is, we had, remember before, I took $33,000 out of professional development. We were able to put a bit more back in the budget, but it's still down $16,000. And the next one is reducing the high school, or to, I guess it would it be eliminating? There's only one class of high school theater, correct?
There's only one high school theater teacher, but this is keeping part of that job currently based on enrollment and eliminating part based on enrollment.
And still holding on to, we're not holding on to, but creating a stipend position
Yep.
to help.
Because the 2 sections that we would not be offering would be our tech theater classes, which helps kids in a classroom environment learn lighting, set design, that sort of stuff. The enrollment for those classes is very low. It's been declining for the last few years. We think it's still an important skill to learn, so I asked, and we've got to put in some money to do through professional services or a stipend, a program outside of the school day to be able to continue to teach kids those important skills, but not do it in the classroom, through classes.
So that list, as you can see, totals $345,000. We've added in a custodian. Subtract that, we're down to $285,000, and that was your objective. So that's the path. That's what I'm recommending as a way to get there.
Thank you to everybody for doing this hard work. None of it is easy, I know, and we've already asked you to do the bare minimum already. I have a couple questions. I'm sure some other people do too. I'm curious about the as far as I can understand, the Pond Cove teacher, one special ed teacher is moving into the reading recovery program, I think. Is that what I'm hearing? No?
There is
That's
Jason
proposal.
has advertised internally
Uh-huh.
a vacancy for, what's the title of this job?
It's a literacy intervention.
Literacy interventionist.
Okay.
And so we believe the job can be filled very well by existing staff.
Mhm.
And I think it's likely that one of the strong candidates will be a teacher in special ed. If she were to be offered this job and accept the job, that leaves a vacancy in special ed. That would be the vacancy that the teacher that has the support job in special ed could go into to be a teacher next year.
Okay. Uh, The children who require, I forget how you,
English language learners?
no, for the same line item.
Oh.
Children who require help from a reading specialist. Has that number stayed the same over the past several years, or is it changing one way or the other?
Well, I don't have like the historical data in
Uh-huh.
terms of trends for that
Okay.
right in front of me, but I know that the need is very, quite significant.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay.
I mean, it's something that I can get for you.
Oh, no, I was just curious
Yeah.
if you knew off the top of your head. It sounds like it's at least consistent from one year to the next.
Yes.
And then, I think my only other question on this list is, Jeff, I'm a little confused about the theater. So my understanding is there's one theater tech class, right, that's,
There are two semester
semesters.
tech theater classes right now.
and that is taught by one teacher employed at halftime, is that right?
Yes.
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 So you are going to reduce, what, another semester, take a semester out, or what do you?
Two semesters.
Two
out.
semesters out.
So that would keep that position at .15, I think, yeah, I think that's, no, I'm sorry, .25, right.
Somewhere.
No,
0.25 or
0.3. It would be-
0.3. You're getting there, yeah?
Okay, yeah.
0.3.
So I guess what I'm.
Currently, that teacher teaches 5 semester sections. With this change, you would teach 3 semester sections. The courses that would remain would be the introductory theater course,
Okay.
theater basics, and then an advanced theater workshop
Uh-huh.
course for kids who have.
Okay,
And then the other one that this teacher teaches is called public speaking. And there's a good sign up for that as well, and has been the last few years.
okay.
It's the technical courses that teach the technical skills that would be taken out of the day because the enrollments were very low anyway.
Uh-huh.
And we would find a way, working with our new theater director, to get the kids the skills they need to support the theater program
Okay,
outside the school day.
thank you.
Yeah,
Now I'm
you're
clear,
welcome.
thanks. Any other questions? Elizabeth?
I have a question about the English language learners. I can see how halftime would work, but I imagine you'd have to be careful with clustering and that sort of thing.
Right.
So that
Right, you're right,
good use of that time
right.
for that person, I think you'd have to be really mindful of that.
Yeah, I agree.
And then as we, approach a new school year and if different needs arise,
Yep.
do we plan to, meet those needs as they come to us?
Yeah. So, may I speak to that? So, everything you say I agree with. I actually think there is some advantage to clustering the students and not having them be isolated from each other. And, I mean, even clustering, well, obviously in terms of comfort level and skill with the language. It could be different ages, but there could be some support there that's quite nice, rather than just everybody being isolated. That doesn't make, I don't think that's necessarily even best for the children. The other option I thought about, though it changes this figure, would be to leave the job split and have the job be something like ELL slash, for the lack of a better example right now, it could be reading, let's just use reading. So that if the job that was half-time, all of a sudden, we had a number of children come in that we didn't plan on being here, moved in, and they were not, English was not their mother tongue, then we could just, what was 50-50, it could be now 60-40 or 70-30. I mean, you get the point. The other part of the job would be the part that would adjust based on the need of children in ELL. That could happen. And there's advantages to it. I mean, it's easier to hire somebody full-time than part-time. And so we would have to think about other ways to come up with that difference, and that can be done. This is a package, but it can be broken up.
Thank you.
Nasser?
Yeah, I have the same question in reference to ELL. Some clarification. Currently, there are 8 schools enrolled, and do we have a prediction or an idea of how many students will come more to that?
Well, my answer is I don't know of any. That doesn't mean they aren't out there.
Yeah.
When I heard about this the other day, which was Tuesday, the feeling then was we know of 8 students and
Okay.
I'm assuming, though, maybe I shouldn't be assuming that included incoming kindergarten children. Not current numbers, but our projection for students that will be here next year.
Yeah.
And I think I was told 8.
Okay. The way I understand the literacy intervention in ELL is that they complement one another. So if you're cutting both of them, then you're really hurting the ELL student. Because a student who is not an ELL, but it still may need a literacy support, so that student is taken out of a class to bring him or her to a certain speed. So there are more students out there than 8, because if you consider taking out the students, they may not be necessarily another language students, but literacy. So I think if you're telling me that we are cutting 2 positions, or at least, okay, we're not.
No.
So literacy intervention is still the same, full-time?
Right.
Okay.
I think the idea is that some change in personnel with that expected, but the position remains.
I don't know, I don't know if this would be an appropriate question for you, but I don't have any idea the sort of allotted time for ELL students. Does it, for if it is 8 students, is a half-time position adequate? Does that?
Well,
I can answer that a little bit, Howard, if you don't mind, only because I asked Kathy Stanka, who couldn't join us tonight for some, I had some questions before, and she said that a caseload of 8 students, even if they are in 3 different schools, is manageable by a half-time teacher due to our one campus and built-in intervention blocks at the middle and high school. By way, South Portland has 8 ELL teachers for approximately 300 students, which equates to 38 students per full-time teacher, or 19 students for a half-time teacher. So it sounds like it's manageable.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you're all just itching to see this job stay full-time, it wouldn't be painful to me to leave it full-time. It's just that I don't think the job could be ELL full-time. There has to be some other split responsibility,
Yep.
and it wouldn't be painful figuring out what that is. It, in part, could be dependent upon the teacher's credentials and specialty. Right, so if at the end of this evening's discussion, you feel you want that to stay full-time, I can do that, and then I could come back to your next meeting with another idea about how to make up that difference, if that's what you feel you want to do. I think you had your hand up, Hope.
Yeah,
So on the science teacher, it looks like a net .25
Mhm.
decrease.
Right.
Can we get a little color on what that looks like?
Well, do you want to speak to that, Mr. Shedd?
Yeah, so right now, been working on the science, the science schedule is gonna be tight, and class sizes will go up a little bit, but we feel comfortable we can absorb it, and we can teach everything that we had in mind to teach. There's going to be a couple of really large sections, but it's not an unknown or unmanageable sort of experience. And we know that the places where there are a couple of large sections are classes where we can anticipate that within the first few weeks of the year, there will be some changes in those numbers. So I can be as specific as you want, because I've been spending a lot of time the last day or two, but
So
that's.
the larger sections, it sounds like that's what,
Yeah, largely senior classes. So it won't affect so much freshman and sophomore classes. It's really a couple of upper-level senior sections.
okay.
And junior. There's one junior class and one senior class.
I have a question for Jeff about the AccuPlacer.
Yep.
My understanding, based on my son who's in ninth grade and taking AccuPlacer and is not ready to go to college because he's got a few
Right.
years left, my understanding was that the AccuPlacer was to be sure that our school, our district, did not graduate any students without, to go into colleges without, I'm sorry, I'm not saying that well. So there are no kids needing to do remedial math once they get beyond
Correct.
Cape Elizabeth. And they're taking it in ninth grade.
Well, yep.
So I'm
This-
wondering if you can speak more to that.
Sure, so this year we
It
actually.
seems pretty important to me.
Yeah, so, I'm not saying that it's not important. It is, but because we were able to pre-purchase, I'm very comfortable that for next year, we've got all the units, and they're sold in what's called units.
Okay,
We've got all the units that we need to tide us through next year, using it exactly the same way as we did this year.
okay.
We bought 5,000 units, or $5,000 worth of units a couple of months ago, specifically because we had a feeling we were gonna be in a tight place. And also because, and one of the things that we're trying to figure out is the community college system is heading in the direction of slowly or not so slowly phasing out their use of the AccuPlacer, which we've been in lengthy discussions and argued vociferously about why we think that's a bad idea, but it's a direction they're going to be going. But there will be, at least for a couple of years, in the next couple of years, some continued use of the AccuPlacer. And regardless of whether the colleges use it or not, we gave it to every single student in the high school this year.
Right.
There are different flavors of it in the math AccuPlacer, and there are different flavors of math AccuPlacer. There's an arithmetic AccuPlacer, there's an algebra AccuPlacer, and then there's another one that's more advanced, and I don't remember the name of it. So we gave the AccuPlacer that seemed appropriate for the students based on where they were, just as a gauge for us, to
Right.
see if they're on track to progress by the time they graduate, to hopefully not need to take any remedial classes.
That's my point, is that I think it's been a very good tool from everything I've heard, to make sure that kids don't fall through the cracks and that they are meeting the standard and the level that we hope that they meet. So then sorry, were you gonna respond? My other question being then, so you bought these units a couple months ago that are gonna cover us for this coming year, so that $5,000 can be taken out. Does that mean that in the following year for the budget, we should plan to think about making sure that it's in there because we'll have to buy more units?
We might need to, but we really need to watch what the colleges do with the
Okay.
AccuPlacer. I mean, Kathy and I participate in lengthy conference calls with folks from the college board arguing why we think this is a bad idea, the direction that they're going, but two administrators at Cape Elizabeth High School didn't persuade the entire college board nationwide.
Really?
We tried. They were good discussions, they listened, but what they're trying to do is, to give that more context, it's not that they're without reasons. There have been significant changes that the college board is making to their pre-SAT courses, the PSAT, and they seem to be moving in the direction of being able to administer PSATs and get results to kids much more quickly, which is the huge advantage of the AccuPlacer. Kids take the AccuPlacer,
And
they
they
know
know.
immediately how they
Right.
did. If the College Board can get to the point where kids take the PSAT, they know exactly how they did, that's enormously helpful to them and to schools identifying students who need some more help. So it's sort of a moving target right now.
Okay.
If we need it, we'll come back and ask for it for the year out, but right now, we're set for next year.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Jeff, just to follow up on that, so it looks like we're in a good place, considering we have coverage for next year, assuming there's no penalty for not purchasing more this year. There's no like financial penalty, no?
No. Nope.
Quick follow-up, a question on that. So if we have an X number of AccuPlacer units,
Yeah.
and say 20 students do not do well, then we have to buy more units, or what can they do?
No,
They get credit.
we have enough to give them to everybody.
Okay.
And then for those students who we want to follow more closely over the course of the year, to repeat that
Okay,
assessment. We
great.
have, I feel really comfortable
Okay,
we're
good.
set for next year.
Can I speak? Thank you, Howard, for putting in the custodian,
Mhm.
for making that something that you want to add in.
Yep.
I just want to comment that. Thanks.
Means Nasser won't have to be here vacuuming.
What was that?
But I thought he wanted to.
I thought you had a clean gym to play basketball, that's why.
No,
John?
all joking aside, I
I
appreciate
had a
that.
question on the delayed CIP piece.
Mhm.
We had originally sort of had a list that was a larger list, and
Right.
can you just sort of give some character about sort of what, if the list expanded, what are the next sort of candidates, and sort of why'd you draw the line where you drew the line?
Well, I was initially hoping just to take out the playground, because that was the top item that Mr. Schwartz felt could be removed. But in order to get down to this number, at some point, it was easier to take a bit more there than it was to get into, we're doing our best to preserve as many services and programs as possible. And it was just, maybe lazy on my part, but it worked. I don't know, I'm bothered by reducing any of it, to tell you the truth. I mean, I actually I'm not happy with reducing a penny out of that account. I could be talked out of the playground easier than I can be talked out of reducing the budget. There are so many things to be done in our schools, basic things, like painting and replacing windows and repairing sidewalks and repairing stairs. I mean, fundamental basic things. We could spend this $250,000 several ways. And so it isn't easy even to put the playground down. And I had thought about I thought about one way to present this tonight was to show you a couple of options, but I thought it could just be confusing to you, and I didn't want to do that. But really, one of them was, in my mind, was to just start with just taking the whole thing out, just to wipe out the whole CIP, right? And I not because I think it's a good idea, but just to realize that's where we are. And that's not only where we are, but it puts us back in a serious way the next year.
Yeah.
And I think that the town and the town council have really got to appreciate that these buildings are in dire straits. And so I thought, well, let's just take the whole thing out and just see how that goes. But I thought, that may be a little bit foolish. But anyway, that's how I got to 115. Yeah.
I sort of feel like we're at the point in the budget, there's no good decisions. We're trying to, like I said, keep afloat in a very challenging situation.
Mhm.
I was just sort of trying to understand the evolution of the prior number to this number, so I think that.
Yeah,
that
well, I
explains
think that the way I understand it is that Mr. Schwartz started the year with thinking that next year he'd have 500,000, and he just cut it in half and said, okay, in rank order, how do I take $250,000 out of my $500,000 budget, and that's what he came up with. And I don't think that it was, he just naturally ended up there. He backed into it.
Which is unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
So are we ready to move on to the next topic? Or does anybody have any other questions about this list? If we are, I just wanted to comment that I didn't make room at the beginning of this meeting, which we usually do for public comment. So I think what we'll do is we'll do this next section and then pause and then let anybody who's in the audience want to address the board to do it at that point.
Okay, so
I don't-
before we shift gears, may I
Yeah.
just say, so if, tonight, before you leave this meeting, if you feel any of these things you want adjusted, I hope you tell me, because they will be adjusted, and then you'll see you'll see a modification of this for next Tuesday night. And I'll get it out to you well in advance, so you can look it over. Okay, so do you want to move to the next item?
Yes, please.
Okay, so remember, we got to a certain point with an architectural firm we're working with, engineering firm, on a complete project to work on very specific projects in our 3 buildings. And that was based on our list of what we thought were important considerations. It wasn't based on their doing an assessment of the 3 buildings. We identified things that we knew were a priority to us. And I point that out because we don't know what they would find out, and we'll find out when they do their really professional assessment of these 3 buildings. So we got help with getting this far with looking at a renovation project on a very modest amount of money in our budget this year to get started. And we really have gotten an awful lot for that amount of money to date. The next stage of this is to have the architects and engineers bring in their own teams and specialists to go through each building with a fine-tooth comb and look at everything. And then show us what they see that we didn't see because we aren't professionals as they are in this field. And to then start meeting with the faculty at all the schools and talking about what they are seeing and what they need, and come back and work with the building committee on identifying a project that may look identical or close to what we have now, but it'll probably be different to some degree. Then to start doing some concept designs and saying, well, these are the things that we've all agreed are the priorities, and here are some ways to achieve that. And then to get those at a point to where it's enough detail where they could actually send those to a third party, to have the third party do a cost estimate on what it would take to do this project, so that someone who's independent could say, that project on today's materials and labor is roughly this number of dollars, so that you've got a number to work with for bidding the project. They also would then come in and give workshops and presentations to the public and to the town council and to you all, and explain and listen and maybe refine things, but there's the whole public part of this is selling it to everybody so that they feel they've been heard and that it represents the values and the interest of the community. Well, that is a lot of work and a lot of time. And we initially saw a proposal to take it to this next level. The third level is to bond the project, to advertise the project, to award the project, to build the project, right? That's the third stage. And so this, we'll call it the second stage, the one we're looking for next year. That came in at around $760,000, round numbers. And to add that amount of money to this budget, it just seems, it doesn't seem at all appealing. And so we're frightened if we put that in our budget, we could lose our budget. And that is the last thing anybody wants. So a number of us met earlier this week, lots been happening around here, with the architects and engineers, and we had a very frank, open, free discussion of a lot of ideas, and the one that we all ultimately felt was possible would be that they would go back and give us a new and obviously a lower number to work with. And the balance of this 760 would then be put into the project to be bonded. So what came back is about a third of the original figure, which is very impressive. And what that means is that if this were to be put in your budget and were to be approved by the voters, even if the project were to go all the way to a vote for a bond and were to be defeated, I would hope that would never happen, but if it were to happen, they would not ask for a dime of the difference. They're saying, we will
So
be,
they're taking the risk.
well, they're gonna big time risk.
Wow.
They're saying, we believe this project is needed, we believe we can do it, we believe we can sell it, we believe your community will be impressed, and so we're gonna roll the dice. That's what they're saying, because they aren't gonna say, because one of the main things we looked at was, we'll pay that in the future. They're saying, you're not gonna be paying it if, unless the project is sold to the voters, which is, I think, you couldn't ask for more. So now it's down to,
249.
is that what it is?
Yep.
I can't even see it. Okay, you're right, thank you. 200, let's just call it $250,000, $249,350. So that, obviously, if you were to add that to your budget, you're back up to the original budget, right? And I didn't think that we could get there, but if this is appealing to you, then this could be added to the budget, and you're still within the original figures, but things have changed drastically, all around. Yeah.
Can I add to that? I'd also like to say, because I was at the meeting, that the engineering firm and architectural firm, they said they've never done this with any community or any project before. They were very appreciative and understanding, maybe not appreciative, they were very open to the conversation with us and sympathetic, maybe is a better word, for the situation we're in. And they said, this is very unconventional for us, we've never done this, but as you mentioned, we are willing to do this because we believe in so much in it. So this is a first for them. As I just heard Elizabeth say, it's a huge risk for them, but they're willing to do it. And it is a gift being handed to us. It is, and I can't stress that enough. I am in full favor. We cannot get a better deal to add this to the budget. We all, well, I want it in the budget anyway, but now with this, I mean, that's what I have to say.
Elizabeth?
So to put a little historical perspective on this, because it has been brought up by town council and perhaps even community members, in late 2011, early 2012, there was and I don't know if I would call it an architectural firm study, but there was a study commissioned for the school department. It cost $25,000. I believe town council covered that cost, and it was a poor study. It was not a good study. It barely scratched the surface. Town officials agree, maybe not openly, but definitely behind doors, that that was a crappy study, to quote those people. And so we find ourselves here, because if it had been a robust and good study, it would have turned up everything that we are seeing. And so while we took the information we had, we did the best we could at the time, but the truth was we did not get very far with what came out of that, because we have huge issues still rearing their ugly heads at us. So to have a true analysis of these buildings presented to us, and to have a firm be willing to take the risk of not being paid. And it is a gift. It's shocking in a really exciting way, but I don't know how much longer we can kick this can down the road. I don't know if it's still raining in the sixth grade wing every time it rains out, but it did for a long time. And that study, that $25,000 study, didn't cover the downpour in the sixth grade wing, for instance. There are lots of other things, and they're going from, hazardous, dangerous, to unhealthy, to just unappealing, and the full gamut. So it's exciting. It's an opportunity that I hope we consider.
I just want to remind you, in case you forgot, that, I forget which one, but when they first presented to us at that workshop, one of them, I think it gives some significance to why they might be making this gesture. One of them is a Cape resident,
Yeah,
a new Cape
I was gonna
resident.
say that.
So it's huge.
I was gonna say a similar comment, that it speaks volumes to an outsider's perspective on this town's attitude towards the schools. I don't think they'd be taking this risk in every community. So, they're saying, we think this is gonna happen, and that the town's gonna support it, and it's eventually gonna be paid via.
Yeah, I want to echo the same. He is a Cape resident. I think finally, I don't know who was involved in that conversation, but you guys did a great job negotiating, but I'm sure there was much negotiating. It's probably all on them, and that's primarily because they're a Cape resident. Just the 250, I don't know if many people have done development